All right, so let's take a look at your lesson practice on page 18, numbers, what is it, 13 through 18? All right, so 13 through 18. So we have number 13, it says justify each step. All right, justify each step. Hold on. So it says justify each step in the solution 5x plus 15 equals 0 below by stating a property or providing a step. So it gives you the equation. So now we have to state the property or the step. Well, what's the first step? First step is always, well, I don't have my answers there. Sorry about that. The first step is always state your the first step is to always state your original equation, okay? You have the original equation, 5x plus 15 equals 0. Remember, you're checking this with a pen, right? This is homework. You're checking it with a pen, right? You're checking this with a pen. If you didn't do it, you're doing it in pen, right? Showing me that you didn't do it, but you're making up for your mistakes now. Again, the problem that we have is that if you aren't doing this and you're just using me to cheat, all right, your test results will show that. So 5x plus 15 equals 0. That's the original equation. My next step, because I'm adding a 15, would be subtracting a 15. And I subtract a 15 from both sides, right? So how do I know what property that is? Well, what operation am I doing? I'm subtracting, right? So I subtract, it's the subtraction property. Both sides means equality. So I'm subtraction property of equality, okay? So my first step is the subtraction property of equality. Now, after adding or subtracting, the very next step is always combining like terms. If you need to write that down, please do. All right, write it down next to where your property, the properties that you have listed. Write it down next to where you have the properties listed on page 16. Right down there below there on page 16. Write down when I add or subtract. When I use the addition or subtraction property of equality, the next step is always combine like terms. So on page 16, you might want to add this again to your notes, right? Is that when you use the addition or subtraction property of equality, the next step is always combine like terms. You're combining the constants. When you multiply or divide, the next step is always simplify. So addition and subtraction property of equality. Next step is combine like terms. The division property of equality or multiplication property of equality. The next step is to simplify. What's your first step? Your first step is always the original equation. You state the problem, right? You state the problem. All right, so 14, right? We're going to solve this equation here. For 14, we have 3x minus 24 equals negative 6. 3x minus 24 equals negative 6 is the original equation. I'm subtracting a 24, so using my reverse order of operations, right? Subtraction, addition, division, multiplication, exponents, then parentheses. I look and see what I have. I have a subtraction. I'm subtracting 24. In order to move that to the other side of the equation, I have to add a 24. So that's my addition property. I'm adding it to both sides, so that's the addition property of equality, right? So 3x minus 24 plus 24 equals negative 6 plus 24, and that is the addition property of equality. Now, after I use addition or subtraction property of equality, what's the next step? Combine like terms. I combine the constants, right? Negative 24 plus 24 reduces to 0. Anything plus 0 is that number, so I have my 3x. Negative 6 plus 24 is 18. The operation I have there is 3 times x. I undo multiplication with division, and what I do to one side, I have to do the other. So I'm going to divide a 3 by both sides. That's called the division property of equality. 3 divided by 3 reduces to a 1. It simplifies to a 1. 1x, right? That's what I have left is 1x, so that's just x, equals 18 divided by 3, which is 6. All right, 4x plus 1 divided by 3 equals 11. My first step is to state the problem, write the original equation. All right, I want to write the original equation. And then I look and I have in the denominator, right? I have a denominator. I can't touch the numerator until I get rid of the denominator. So I will multiply that 3 by both sides, okay? I multiply the 3 by both sides. That's the multiplication property of equality. The 3 times the 3 in the denominator simplifies to 1. Anytime you have a 1 in the denominator, it's a whole number, so you just use the numerator. Okay, so that gives me just 4x plus 1. And that equals 3 times 11, which is 33, right? I got that by simplifying. Next, I see that I'm adding a 1. So in order to undo adding, I subtract. And I have to subtract that 1 by both sides. That's the subtraction property of equality. So 4x plus 1 minus 1 equals 33 minus 1. That's the subtraction property of equality, which gives me 4x equals 32 when I combine like terms. I have a 4 being multiplied by the x. I undo it with division. Give me 4x divided by 4. Divide equals 32 divided by 4 because I divide a 4 by both sides. That's the division property of equality. And I simplify to get my answer. My answer is x equals 8. All right, 16 says to define a variable for each problem, then write and solve an equation to answer. Define a variable for each problem, then write and solve an equation to answer the question. Check your solutions. Okay, so last week, Donnell practiced the piano 3 hours longer than Marcus. Together, Marcus and Donnell practiced the piano for 11 hours. How many hours did each young man practice the piano? All right. So we have to define the variable. That's what it says, right? We have to define the variable. That's what it tells us to do. So we're going to let D represent the number of hours that Donnell practiced the piano. All right. The equation here, hold on, I just realized that this should be the equation minus, right? It didn't pick up the minus, so I'll put that in there. So D plus, the equation would be D, that's what Donnell is. Marcus, right? Marcus was whatever Donnell is minus 3 because Donnell practiced 3 hours longer. So when Marcus stopped, Donnell went 3 hours longer. So wherever Donnell was, Marcus stopped 3 hours before. So you subtract the 3 from D. And so you'll have D plus D minus 3 equals the 11 hours total. Donnell practiced 7. All right. So 2D minus 3 equals 11. Add a 3 to both sides. That gives me 2D equals 14. Then I divide a 2 by both sides, and I get D equals 7. That means Donnell practiced for 7 hours. For Marcus, D minus 3. I plug that in. 7 minus 3 is 4. So Marcus practiced 4 hours. Okay, so Marcus would practice 4 hours. Olivia ordered 24 cupcakes and a layer cake. The layer cake cost $16, and the total cost of the order was $52. What is the price of each cupcake? All right, so we have to define the variable. So we're going to let C represent the cupcake, cost of the cupcake. Okay, so how many cupcakes did they buy? 24. So that would be 24 times C. Plus they spent $16 on a layer cake. So we have to add 16, and that equals the total of 52, the total that Olivia spent. Okay. So now I go through and I just start solving this equation. I subtract the 16 by both sides, right? Combine my like terms. I get 24C equals 36. With 24C equals 36, I have to divide the 24 by both sides. That is the division property of equality. That gives me 36 divided by 24, which is 3 over 2, which is 1.5. Is 1.5 my answer? No, because I'm talking about money. And so 1.5 can't be an answer, okay? It's wondering what is the cost of a cupcake. So we have to put it in, right? We have to put it in what we use for our money, right? Our money notation. And so instead of saying 1.5, we have to say $1.50. Okay? So the cupcakes, each cupcake cost $1.50.